Yesterday, we heard the Defence Minister outline India's strategic vision. We saw CEOs chart new frontiers in AI and consumer innovation and watched leaders debate diplomacy, development and disruption, all on one stage.
And today the focus sharpens. We move from questions of power to questions of execution. Who's building what? Who's leading and how? And where does real change begin?
It's a packed day. A former Prime Minister, union ministers, investors, innovators, policymakers, and of course, the Honorable Prime Minister of India joining us later this evening.
But before all that, a big thank you to our partners who've made this possible. Our presenting partner Visa, powered by Raymond, co-powered by Suzlon. Our state partners are the Government of Madhya Pradesh, the Government of Uttarakhand, and the Government of Haryana. Our neural intelligence partner, Litmus 7, and our knowledge partner, PwC. Now, before we dive into today's sessions, a quick reminder, ladies and gentlemen, for those of you who need it, simultaneous Hindi to English translation is available. There's a counter that says headphone at the back of the hall. Do pick up your headphones from there, and once the session is done, as always, return those headsets back to that counter.
And for those of you multitasking with screens, don't forget to use the hashtag ETWLF 2025. Join the global conversation, or at the very least, correct the speaker's quotes.
And with that, let's begin day 2 of the Economic Times World Leaders Forum. Our opening address this morning comes from a leader who's made history as Italy's youngest ever Prime Minister and one of its most ambitious reformers.
During his tenure, he championed labor reforms, legalized civil unions, and pushed for a stronger, more competitive economy.
And today he brings that perspective to a conversation that matters deeply to us: Europe, India, and the next phase of global economic cooperation.
Please welcome the former Prime Minister of Italy, Matteo.
Ladies and gentlemen, good morning. Thank you so much to invite me here in a very important and prestigious occasion. It's not easy to discuss about geopolitics in those crazy times, because I think everyone agree we live in a very crazy times. But I think you invite me because as Italian, I'm expert of chaos. Italians do it better in a time of crisis, and we are absolutely expert in disorganization, and so the fantasy could help in this difficult time. Let me introduce, thank you so much for the kind words. I was Prime Minister, yes, 10 years ago. I was mayor of the most beautiful city in the world, Florence. Sorry if someone could be jealous for this description. And yes, I was the youngest. I'm the youngest Prime Minister in the history of Italy. That is not a very prestigious. No, please don't applaud, because the second was Benito Mussolini. So the ranking is not the best. The benchmark is not easy. And now I think we have 2 points, very simple, I want to offer to you. After the very interesting first day, I follow a lot of panel, and I think we can start from 2 simple points. The first, in this time, globalization is an opportunity, not a problem. That is the first message I have to underline. That is exactly the opposite of sovereignism around the world, and particularly the strategy of President Trump. Globalization helps us. Is not our enemy, is not our problem. This is the first. The second point, Europe is in crisis. Because Europe is in crisis, Europe needs India. But I think also India needs Europe, exactly for the same reasons of the crisis of globalization. I think from the first point, globalization and those crazy times. You know, technology in this time knows the very important phase of artificial intelligence. Some countries today in politics don't use artificial intelligence, but use natural stupidity, exactly the opposite of artificial intelligence. Why? Because if you think about the situation, you know we have problems very strong, but the approach is totally different with respect to our ambition. Thinking about the point of my country, migration. We discuss in the newspaper every day about migration. And you know how many people arrive in 2024 in Italy? Less than 100,000. You know how many students left Italy to go abroad? How many Italians left Italy to go abroad for study, for job? The double, 200,000. What means? The public debate is totally focused on some ideological topics without a comprehensive point of view. Thinking about one different point, energy. We discussed about energy in the last years, but the needs for energy, thanks to artificial intelligence, data center, new technology, is absolutely increased in the last years. So we need a surplus of energy who probably explain all the debates of the past. Also, the Green Deal in Europe wasn't good as we expect. Thinking about one point, life. I became prime minister, and I remember a discussion with the responsible of the budget. You know, we have a very old people in Italy. We are the second of expectation of life. And all my managers, the managers of the public budget in Italy, look at me, oh, my prime minister, we have a problem. What problem? In Italy, we live too much. I look at him, okay, I understand that is a problem for budget, but I think became old is not good, but is better than alternative, as Woody Allen explained very clearly. So why you consider that a problem? Because we don't transform our medical sector, our system of organization of medicine in a different way. So we live in a time in which we need a change of leadership. We need a change of vision. We need a lot of reforms. That is our time. And in this time, this is my opinion, if we start with a trade war, as our American friends decided to do, we decide the most stupid thing for the future of the world, not for the future of India, of the future of Italy, or the future of Europe, where the goods don't get through. And a French former expert used to say, the soldiers will pass, the soldiers will march. Trade war is the most stupid thing we can do. But now we are here. We are in the middle of the trade war. And what is the situation of Europe? That is the second point of my speech. Europe is in crisis for a lot of reasons. The first, for demography problem. Look the numbers. You are the most populous country in the world, 1.5 billion people. Europe lost in the last years a lot of population. Thinking about Italy, thinking about my generation, I'm 50. I'm born in 75. So 50 years ago, in Italy, we had more or less 1 million of new babies every year. Last year, we had less than 400,000 babies. 1 million to 0.4 in 50 years. What means that? That is not a decline of demography. This is a collapse of demography. And if we don't consider that as a priority, discussing about the future of Europe, we show we don't know what is the history. Roman civilization and for the crisis in demography, first of all. So, demography is the first problem. The second is bureaucracy. Let me be very clear. I think European dream is one of the most important pillars in the history of my continent and my country, because we decided to move from a continent full of civil wars to a continent of peace and prosperity. Last century was the century of the peace and the prosperity of Europe. So, chapeau, great achievement for Europe. But today, we transform this political vision in a bureaucratic approach. We continue with an over-regulation in Brussels. We have too much stupid rules and not a clear vision for the future. Europe is not the center of the world as in the past. If you look geographic map, European people think Europe is in the middle. Then there is America, Asia, India, China, Africa, but in our mind, Europe is in the middle. Now, if you look at the numbers, that is not true, unfortunately. But that is also an opportunity to become not more the center of the world as in our mind, and transform our assets in a very good assets to discuss with the new multipolar center of the new world. There is not a new global order, there is a new global disorder. And in this global disorder, we can play a role different with respect to the past, because we have an incredible history, an incredible asset, an incredible future. We have to cut the mistakes of past. We had a bad approach on tariffs. We accept every single decision of President Trump. President Trump called European leaders in the White House, okay, that is the, and as a not maker, not a deal maker. He decided the budget for defense, he decided the budget for energy, and please consider that. America, I'm very good friend of the United States of America. I'm so proud to be part of a great alliance between Europe and the United States of America, and my last visit was also the last official visit as Prime Minister was on the White House with the President Obama. So I'm so happy and grateful for the great support and leadership of the United States of America. But we cannot accept the idea energy's problem become different when America found the shale gas, and so they changed totally perspective and the policies in Middle East and in Europe, because they became from nation who import energy, nation who export energy. We cannot accept. We became only a followers of the United States of America, not a country, a continent leader. So we have to change and wake up Europe to become a new leaders in the new world. I think we have to use our cultural history, and that is true for India, and that is true for Europe, because we have a very great past. I know it's not easy to discuss about past, because technology wants only future, because bureaucracy wants only present. But politics needs to combine together past, present, and future. And I'm so proud of my root, and you are so proud of your roots. And we have to use our roots, different roots, to create a partnership for tomorrow. That means we have to invest in our education, in our quality, in our beautiful. Yes, beautiful. Beautiful is a part of politics. A great Russian writer, Fyodor Dostoevsky, wrote in my city, in Florence, an expression very famous, is the beauty will save the world. I think that is not easy to understand in a time of crisis, but I think for the people who believe in the education, that is a key point. So we have to work in direction of wake up Europe, this is our mission, and try to have a different and more solid and more strategic relation between India and Europe. Yesterday, we listened to the speech of Minister of Trade of India. A lot of very interesting debate about the situation in India, also under the light of the relation with China, with Russia, and of course with the United States of America. I think we have to move the European leaders to understand India is not a normal partner. India is the most populous country in the world. India has a great tradition. India has an unbelievable level of technology. India is a country able to be the key partner in this strategic time. What means that? We have to create an institutional dialogue stronger than in the past. I think it's not enough a visit of Ursula von der Leyen to Prime Minister Modi. And I think we can do that, particularly now, because there is a Greek expression, it's kairos, the right momentum, the good time. That is the kairos for the relation between India and the EU. I joke, let me conclude with a joke. Our Prime Minister, Giorgia Meloni, she's not part of, she's not belong to my party, I'm the opposition, but of course, right or wrong is my country, so I believe that is important to underline. Our Prime Minister have a very good relation with your Prime Minister. And in Italy, we used to say melody. And I think that is very fun, and I joke with the Prime Minister Modi. I worked with him very strongly and very good 10 years ago when I became Prime Minister, and he became Prime Minister at the same time. But I think we have to change the melody to music. What means? Please. Melody is a very good thing. It's a personal thing. Music have to be institutional thing. I learned what means music, not from an Italian guy. Oh, wow. Italians have very great musicians, thinking about Verdi, Puccini, Vivaldi, Mascagni. And not from a European guy, Bach, Beethoven, not. I learned music, what means really music, from an Indian guy. When I was mayor of Florence, the director, the conductor, the boss of Florentine music, Teatro del Maggio Musicale, was and is and will be forever an Indian guy, Mr. Zubin Mehta. And Maestro Mehta explained me what means music. He tried to explain two things. The first is the rules of cricket, and I don't understand. And they tried to explain, oh, there is a match very important, 2 days and a half. Okay, Mr. Mehta, I don't understand. Okay. The second, he tried to explain me what means music. Music is use an orchestra with the same voices, with the same instruments, with the same players. I think Europe and India could play a different music if they decide finally to come back together to write not a page of the past, but a page of the future. I strongly believe in it. Thank you so much.
Mr. Renzi, for that incisive view on where global cooperation must go next and what it takes to get there.
Lots of Indian references there, and I'm told, Abba, by the way, that Italy's cricket team is going to be playing in the next World Cup.
Really?
They actually have a cricket team. Yeah. They have a cricket team that's going to be playing in the next World Cup. Now, it's always refreshing to hear from a leader who's operated at the very center of power, and as Matteo Renzi demonstrated, isn't afraid to speak with perspective, candor, and a bit of humor.
And from the global economy, we now zoom into something much closer to home, India's most powerful growth engine.
Not a sector, not a policy, but a person. And this person is called the Indian consumer. Restless, rising, redefining value, redefining choice and aspiration.
That's what we'll explore next. But first, let's give one more round of applause to Matteo Renzi, please.
Now, if there's one thing that India doesn't have a shortage of, any guesses what that one thing is? No shortage of that at all. Opinions. We all have opinions on what to buy, what to eat, what to wear, and of course, how to post about it.
In this session on the new Indian consumer, aspirational, digital native, always on, we explore a segment that's curious, confident, and not particularly patient.
They're also rewriting the rules. Obviously, we're Indians, so price matters, yes, but so do values, design, and the experience that surrounds the purchase.
To unpack what's really driving behavior across segments, we're joined by a panel that knows the Indian consumer up close and at scale.
First, Group Country Manager for India and South Asia at Visa, Sandeep Ghosh. Sandeep, can we have you on stage?
Also with us, Chairman of the Raymond Group, Gautam Singhania.
Joining them will be the Managing Director and CEO of the Indian Hotels Company, Puneet Chhatwal.
And from the world of global luxury, CEO of Franck Muller for the Middle East, Africa and India, Errol Balian.
And Managing Director of Moet Hennessy India, a part of the Louis Vuitton Moet Hennessy Group, Ipshita Das.
Moderating this discussion, Head of BCG India, Rahul Jain. Let's dive right in.
Yes, we're all here. So let's dive in and find out what's really driving the new Indian consumer. Rahul, over to you.
Good morning, everyone. I think what an outstanding panel we have. I was wondering, it covers from luxury hotels to luxury watches to fantastic garments and fabrics to, I was just discussing tequila, our favorite drink, but also much more beyond the champagne and also Visa. So I think given the wide range of products and services, the intent today is to get an inside peek on how they are seeing the consumer evolve. I think over the last decade, we have had a massive transformation of the Indian consumer in different facets, the rising income levels, the rising awareness, global travelers, digitally connected, and so on and so on, and willing to spend a lot more than past, caring a lot more about experiences, looking for the right proposition, and also demanding a lot from different brands. So the idea to begin with is to explore what are people seeing, and maybe I'll start with you, Gautam. You have seen Raymond has been a generational brand. How have you seen the consumer evolve in the last decade?
Thank you. I think, we're happy that Raymond today is going to be a 100-year-old brand in 20 days. What started off as a brand for the wedding, for the first job, today, I think with technology, with exposure through Instagram and media, we've seen the brand become much younger. And what was originally a woolen fabric company that only made woolen fabric, got into polywool, got into polyviscose, and the product offering over the last, especially 2 decades, has dramatically changed to bring the average age of the consumer down.
Fantastic, fantastic. Puneet, you deal with a wide variety of consumers, especially with the multi-tiered brand strategy that Taj has come up with. How are you finding the change in the new consumer?
Wow. Firstly, Gautam forgot to mention, he just said it outside, stay at Taj and wear Raymond. Second, I would say stay
Two good Indian brands, two legacy Indian brands.
Two legacy Indian brands. Then, if you're in a good mood, you can have some Moet Hennessy and some Hennessy. If you have forgotten your watch, you can shop that also with us. And if you are short of cash, pay with Visa. So, all happens here. Well, from our point of view, I think you want to hear about the brandscape part. So we have gone from traditionally just Taj for the first, we are in the 122nd year, the first 100 years, to a multi-brand strategy. For a variety of reasons, we could not execute well on it, but in the last 3-5 years, we are on a roll. And all of our brands are doing well, starting from a homestay at Ama level to Taj Palaces, or Taj outside of India in London or in New York. And I think it's just the evolution of the brandscape with the evolution of the new India. The new India is not just that top 5-10% people using hotels. It's at least, I would say, 300 to 400 million today, and 600 to 800 million in 5 years from now. And the needs and wants of all the population, of all the Indians at different price points is different. And since we claim to be the custodian of Indian hospitality, it is our obligation also as a part of Tata Group company, to address the needs and wants of all Indians and not just a certain segment of the market, without losing the core strength, because I always say Taj is not a brand, Taj is an emotion. Taj is the crown jewel of India, not just of our group. So we have to keep Taj as pure, as emotional, as relevant as possible, especially in today's world where hospitality has got divided into two segments. One is the cookie cutter, you get the same hotel, same room, same colors, and the other is purely distribution. That whole thing, the focus around the customer centricity is not in the same way, which is a big opportunity for Asian brands in general, and the Atiti Devo Bhavo Indian philosophy in particular, and an opportunity for brands like the Taj to really not only become the strongest brand now, but for decades and a century to come.
Fantastic. Thank you. Sandeep, you witness and closely monitor spend patterns of Indians. How are you seeing that evolve in the recent past?
Thanks, Rahul. So first of all, I'd like to say that, this consumption boom in India is multifaceted. And really what's changed is the fact that there is a new kind of aspirational population that has come into the fold, which is powered by the, growing kind of digital connectivity. We've seen rising affluence in tier 2, 3, 4 cities, so it's gone way beyond the metros. And we are also seeing a thriving and robust entrepreneurial ecosystem. Now, what is all this doing? We think the future of consumption is personalized, it's purposeful, it's pluralistic. And what's driving all this is really, like I said, the surge of the digital economy, everything that we read about, like 1 billion phones and, 700 million smartphones and 500 million users of digital payments. But equally, the democratization of affluence. So when we look at our credit card spends, interestingly, in the last 3-4 years, the tier 2, 3, 4 cities, the spends have gone up 4x, relative to a 2x or 2.5x growth in the metros. So the incremental growth in affluence because of democratization of affluence is interesting. People are also very, very mindful of convenience. All of us have seen this quick commerce boom in India. It's growing faster in India than anywhere else in the world. And then, this Gen Z and millennial population is super interesting because it's not that they don't care about value for money, but they also care about experiences as much as they care about value for money. And last but not the least, I'd say the creator economy. So India has seen a surge of about 2.5 million influencers and creators who are kind of fueling $350 billion of annual consumption spend. These are all, things that we've seen as a phenomenon of the last 5-6 years, particularly post-COVID. And this is dramatically changing the landscape when it comes to the nature of consumption, who's consuming, where they are consuming, etc.
Thank you. Ipsita, you deal with the premium end of the consumer. Are you seeing a growth in that in a significant way as one would expect or not?
Absolutely, yes. So the growth is coming from the changing mindset that everyone's talking about today. And I want to take a moment to talk about how through the lens of Moet Hennessy we see that mindset changing. I think today the new India is not just an India with a global outlook, but it is also an India which is very, very deeply culturally rooted, right? And when we look at this mindset is actually today transitioning from just pure possession to a lot more than that. There is a want of self-expression. And the way I see the self-expression coming through are through 4 different pillars. One, today the new India wants recognition. They want to say that we are successful on a global stage. Today the new India also wants an identity. They don't want to just copy the West. Today we want to say we are authentic, this is who we are, and we have arrived. I think next is what you already spoke about, the want for experiences. right? It's not about just buying a bag or buying a bottle of cognac anymore. It is about the experience around it that I get. And last but not the least, which is a little controversial, and I don't think we recognize it enough, today's new India is a lot more purposeful. Right? There is a want to leave a legacy behind. There is that aspiration. And with all of this, I think we have transitioned from just bringing in materialistic possession to building memories through experiences and mirroring our ambitions. And of course, as Moet Hennessy, we have to cater to this India. Right? The way we do that is not just bringing in the portfolio that we have across the world. We were speaking about vodka and tequila that we launched in India last year. But it's not just that. It's not that we are just bringing in champagnes and tequila because it's out there in the West, but we are also launching our homegrown products. We have a Chandon winery very much here in India. LVMH launched its first red wine, still red wine from India, from there, called Chandon Orva a year back. The same thing with experiences. We see, the world 50 best bars. When we are traveling, we all go there. But what are we doing? We are actually bringing them to India. A year back, we got Gina, one of the top 50 mixologists from around the world. She owns a bar in Mexico. She was here very much in our Delhi, in Bangalore, making the best of the cocktails for our own Indian consumers. So we are actually bringing the world to India for the new Indians, and they are seeking these experiences today.
Thank you. And Errol, you see the world at a slightly further away vantage point. How do you compare and contrast India over time and across countries?
Yes. Let me start this discussion. First of all, thank you for the invitation, and I'm I think, only foreigner here. I'm very honored for the invitation. 22 years I'm in the business, and last 12 years I'm closely spending my time in India with Indian consumers. And all my close circle knows I'm pro India. I believe in the future of India. That's why the reason we have been investing as a brand heavily in India last 12 years. And I've gathered some observations in the last 12 years about India. Two things. One is Indian consumers are extremely intellectual, highly educated, hardworking, resilient, and entrepreneurial. This is one side of the coin. The other side of the coin, what I've observed, is politically the country is very strong. And this results in economical stability and growth. So when you combine those two factors, every year we are achieving up to this year, last year was 2-digit growth. This year probably is going to be 1 digit. And we keep increasing our sales and revenue. Now, here, new consumers, what we are observing is, one is first-generational entrepreneurs. They make their money from IPOs, startups, various ventures. Then we see urban elites growing. Apart from that, C-level executives, which all of you, I'm sure, seeing, now they are ruling the whole world. All the world's top companies are being ruled by Indians. It's a very important statistic, fact. Then ultra-high net worth individuals are growing in numbers. So those are the consumers that we are now catering. If we have time, I want to give a couple of statistics. So you see where India is standing in the global scale. Ultra-high net worth individuals today, 13,000 in India, according to the statistics. Millionaires in India are right now around 380,000, which is increasing every year 12%. That's a great number. From a salary income bracket monthly, $10,000 plus, this number is now, as per last year, was around 60 million. It's going to be in 2027 expected to be 100 million. Those are great numbers, very promising numbers. On top of that, for my industry, our industry, high-end watchmaking industry, is approximately 26 billion Swiss franc industry. India is globally at 21st in terms of ranking. It's not great, but here is the bright side. Last year, India achieved 128 million Swiss franc Swiss watch imports. Now, 21st globally, but when you look at overall growth, after the United States, India is 12% growth. This is a great number again. Now, if you look at globally, China is minus 19%, Hong Kong is now minus 14, Thailand minus 20. Numbers are going down globally. India is growing. So the growth is there, and I really believe as a group, as Franck Muller, and we keep doing what we do.
Yes. No, thank you. I think it's quite clear that the Indian consumer is arriving and all the global giants are taking notice of it, and the Indian companies are obviously well geared to serve them. I would move to now slightly more inside view of how are different companies serving these evolving needs of consumers. Maybe I'll go back to you, Gautam. I think in the new world, and we all know of Raymond's transformation in the last few years, how have you gone about evolving your business to better serve the consumer need and target more closely?
So I think really to the core of this is product development. I think Raymond, just so you put it into perspective, we're the only brand in the world that goes 3,000 times in price point under the same brand. We go from 300 rupees a meter to 1,000,000 rupees a meter. So what we used to say is, from the taxi driver to Mr. Tata, everybody wore Raymond. And really, this product offering with the availability is the key to meeting the needs. I mean, we were talking about the evolving consumer, and you know, one of the things I'm very involved is with cars, and we have this supercar show every year. This year we had 250,000 people that came there. We had, I think, close to maybe 300-400 million views with 70,000 reposts. The power of the millennium, the young aspirational India, is huge. I just want you to picture this. This was one of the most telling pictures that shows what's aspiration in this country, and not to be taken in a wrong way. There was this old maidservant who had a mobile phone in her hand taking a picture of a Rolls Royce. Now, she's probably never seen a Rolls Royce in her life. But that aspiration that, you know, I get to see a Rolls Royce. And I was with a friend of mine the other day at a dinner, and she says, Gautam, I got to tell you something. She says, my tailor who comes to work at my house has said that in 2 years I'm going to get married and I want to get a Raymond shirt, a Raymond white shirt. This is the aspiration. And she said to him, she said that, you know, I know, Gautam, do you want me to write Raymond on the outside? And he was so excited that, you know, I can get a shirt with Raymond. And today's whole business is about mass customization. How do I do mass customization? Today we have the largest ecosystem of tailors, over 3,000 tailors. And I remember long ago, a press person asked me, he said, what do you think about made to measure that the foreign companies do? I said, we've done that all our life.
Fantastic, fantastic. Puneet, I'll go to you. I think there are two things everyone notices about Taj. I think it is, of course, the most iconic hospitality brand, but I think internationally, everyone looks up to it, and it has become a global benchmark, not just an Indian benchmark. And also, you've managed to straddle a wide range of experiences at different price points. So how is Taj able to do it continuously?
It's an interesting question. I have my own philosophy to it, and that is everybody in this hall and all of us here, we can change our business plans every 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, but you cannot change your core values, whether it's on your personal front, the families in which you've been brought up, or it's on your professional front in the organizations. So we asked ourselves the same question almost. It is 6 years ago. And we said this, we talk about Tajness and, you know, this whole ethos, part of DNA, but what is it? Then we came to a conclusion that it's just the way we are. Then we said, this is not good enough. How do you communicate to 40,000 employees? What does it mean the way we are? So we simplified and we said the T is for the trust of all the stakeholders. A is for the awareness of the communities you live in. And J is for the joy in doing what you do. So across all our brands, these three core values are common. And then the loyalty program, Taj Inner Circle, is common. Rest, each brand has to stand on its own feet. There is no by Taj or a little bit of a prefix of a Taj or a suffix of a Taj. So a gateway is a gateway, a Vivanta is a Vivanta, a ginger is a ginger. And I think this very strong connect of your core values of Taj, coupled with the core values, the 5 core values of the Tata Group, form the bedrock of doing anything we want to do. So then the brandscape can evolve, your enablers can evolve, your strategic initiatives can evolve to get you to what the purpose of the organization is. But I think the bedrock of anything that you do is your value system, and that helps you to go beyond a century of legacy. Other things are, I think, our strategies and tactics. They're good for 3 years, 5 years, 7 years. But your value system helps you and helps your entire brandscape to thrive. And that has definitely worked in our case.
Thank you. Very profound. And I could not agree more. I think values stay forever. I think strategies evolve with the paradigms around us. Sandeep, switching gear to you, we've seen a multitude of co-branded cards that Visa has come up with. What's the strategy behind it?
That's a great question, Rahul. And I'd begin again with a statistic. About a decade ago, 1 in 10 cards in India used to be a co-brand card. And in the course of the last decade, and particularly in the last 3 or 4 years today, we see like 1 in 3 cards is a co-brand card. Now, what's kind of driving this? As I think, again, Ipshita spoke about this fact that customers, especially this new consumer cohort, is motivated by unique, culturally connected, personalized experiences. And what co-brands really effectively manage to do is give customers those experiences, those rewards which sort of meet their lifestyle, their preferences, and I'll share some examples. Like you said, how are businesses responding to this? Definitely co-brands is a way, but sitting behind that is really the power of data and insights, is being able to understand what is driving this consumption, what is driving their behaviors, what is driving their preferences, how do you make that emotional connect with the consumer that you're targeting. And obviously, as a card network, we do this in partnership with banks, but also with brands. And we launched a card with that Puneet himself personally conceptualized with the Taj, and it was the first ever co-brand that Taj launched for people who go to hotels, who like travel experiences. And this is not about getting a 5% cashback. This is about getting real value where people spend their time and where people spend their money. Similarly, with the Times of India group, we launched a Times Black card, which is again very much anchored on experiences which are very, very unique. And they will host a dinner in Delhi sometime soon at the Red Fort. And that's typically not an experience that anyone can just get just by paying money. And then again, there are people who like shopping, and we have a great proposition in this country with Amazon, which is for that. So this is really this whole notion that with premiumization, personalization, people looking for that connect, how do you create effectively segments of one, give them that experience. And for businesses, it's therefore very, very important to understand that and then to create very, very strong digitally enabled user interfaces and experiences that cater to those segments of customers.
Fantastic. Thank you. Ipsita, you were sharing with me, today more and more people are looking for experiences and not products. How are you factoring that into your strategy and into your marketing approaches?
Yeah, so I think Rahul, products is there, but what really tops up the joy of having the product is the experience around it. And I think I'll take that a notch more, and I would say, how do you personalize that experience, right? And I think we are sitting amongst a panel who've done this in and out, starting with Puneet. So today, I think the way we're looking at India is we don't want to be just customers, right? We want to be part of the inner circle. We do not want to just transact. We want to connect, right? And that emotion is extremely important for brands, right? For us, it is important that we are not just selling that product, but we are really taking care of how we are making our consumer feel. It's all about the feel and the emotion. And I'll share a small story, Puneet. So I was staying in one of the palace hotels, and I was staying there for 4 nights. And long stay, generally it would be a couple of days and in and out, but this was a long work stay. And the first day I walk in, there was a bunch of Rajnigandhas in the room. My favorite. I was really, really happy. I was like, that's a sweet touch. The next day I come back from work, there was a book kept on my bedside table, and which was mine. And the attendant who came to the room, he actually put a bookmark on it and said, I realized you were reading a book, so I'm leaving a bookmark for you, for your convenience. I thought that's sweet as well. Third day I come back, and this is where it blew my mind. Third day I come back, I see on the top of the table there are 4 Darjeeling tea bags kept, with a note from the attendant, dear ma'am, I noticed the last few days you were only consuming Darjeeling tea. I thought that you really, really appreciate it, so I'm leaving 4 extra bags for you. And that's the connection. He was really seeing what I was consuming, how I was reacting, and he really touched me when he left those 4 additional bags. And it is these small moments of surprises, that small moments of joy that the Indian consumer is today looking for. And the way we are doing that is with multiple experiences as well, and hyper-personalized. And it is across the entire age bracket. Well, starting off with you're getting married, there are personalized champagne bottles with your name on it. Not just for you, but your entire friend circle and the return gifts that goes with all our weddings and wedding, I would say, return gifts. The second, you're going on your 10th anniversary, you're not just visiting a distillery of Glenmorangie or an Ardbeg, but you're actually sitting down with the master distiller, tasting the whiskey along with him. Fast forward a few more years, your daughter's 18th birthday, or 21st in India. You're not just having her first glass of champagne with her here sitting in your living room, but you're actually going to Champagne, seeing the first harvest, and opening the first bottle with her. That's not where it ends. I think a large part of this group might agree. Come to your 50th birthday, you're not just opening a bottle of 25, 35-year-old whiskey. You're actually going back to the cellar, picking up a whiskey from your year of birth. 50th birthday, you're opening a 50-year-old whiskey with your friends. And those whiskeys actually also come in bottles that are customized just for you. So I think we've taken, the entire affluent India has taken the notch of consumption, not just basic bottles, to experiences and to hyper-personalization as well.
Fantastic, fantastic. No, very, very, I had goosebumps in me when the experience was being described. So I think there is never enough of personalization that you do. I'll give you a small story. We were once working with Starbucks in the US, and the mandate that was given to us was that every individual in any Starbucks store in the world, when the person walks in to the counter, the person who's taking the order should be able to tell exactly what that person would order and not need to order, so that you don't have to ask 7 questions of the coffee type and the milk type and the temperature of the type. And that was the mandate, right? And of course, that is very aspirational. We may not have gone there, but it tells you how much the companies are beginning to think, and with the entire segment of one and the entire approach to predict and the analytic tools behind it, I think it's doable in today's time. I think where I feel the gap comes is not in the technology, and we'll touch about that, but actually what Puneet touched, which is the culture and the soft side of it. How do you equip your team to deal with this? How do you first set the right aspiration? Because this experience sharing or putting, the Darjeeling tea bags, no computer, no AI, no tool can tell. It is the person in the room who has to deal with it and be motivated enough to do it.
And I think that's where, we need to balance the algorithm with the heart.
Yes.
Right? The world is today, we are saying there's going to be a lot of algorithm out there. Of course, AI is going to be there. But for that heart to be there, you need that personal touch, and that's what differentiates brands.
Absolutely. Outstanding. I think, Errol, you've been expanding in India, and you touched about the rich consumer while India is very large, we always say India is not one country. India is Africa in parts, Indonesia in parts, and Western Europe in parts. So we have the full spectrum, and you probably deal with the Western Europe. But how are you seeing the stores expand to beyond Bombay, the South Bombay, South Delhi, and parts of Bangalore? And are you planning to expand to the second tier towns as well at some point?
11 years ago, 12 years ago, when we started, we had 1 point of sales. Now, as we speak, we are on the 15 point of sales. So the potential is immense, and we're going to keep strategically expand here. Now, in India, you need to understand, you need to be as foreign brands, international brands, they need to be available in every city. Today, we are in every major city, including the airports. So this is a key strategy that we follow. Coming back to personalization, and I think I'm very proud to say we understand the Indian culture very well. In the last 3-4 years, we have achieved beautiful limited edition timepieces. Recently, one was India limited edition, where we engraved the Indian map behind the watch, which was tribute to Indian culture, tribute to the different languages, tribute to the different cultures, which live under one flag. This was amazing. Then we did something for the sporting spirit. We did Men in Blue. It was an amazing success. We used first time the Indian numerals in the watch. We did something for the, as you remember, 60th Independence Day. So expanding is one thing, but understanding the culture, especially in India, different than Europe, US, India is strongly cultured country. If you want to succeed, you need to understand the culture, and you need to touch people's heart. And this is what we have done and achieved. Probably, I can say humbly, we achieved this. And then now, another edition we're going to do. It's a very sensitive and dear to my heart. It's going to be a religious timepiece, never done before. Last 1 year, we have been working on this relentlessly until we achieve the perfect dial. Hopefully, in 2 months, we're going to announce. What else I can tell you?
Well, I think this is quite good. Thank you. I think there is one aspect which I wanted to touch upon. We talked a lot about the evolving consumer and how companies are adapting their business model, their culture, their values, and their marketing and experiential approach to target them better. I think the one big enabler behind all of this is technology, is data, it's AI, and there has been a lot of discussion on this even yesterday. But I think we can't not talk about it, because the biggest barrier what I have seen in most companies, even if you want to personalize, is you don't have universal data, because your data systems are quite disparate. You don't have the right technology platforms to enable it, because you're working on different systems. And also with AI, I think people are still in the evolution of, in the journey of what to install, what's the value of it. So maybe if I can ask a few of you on how you are dealing with, maybe I'll start with you, Gautam. How is Raymond thinking about its AI or technology strategy more from a consumer standpoint?
So it's a good question. I think AI today is the buzzword. Everybody is talking about AI. But let me give you one example where we are, and I see the interest of time. Let me give you one example that we have made a paradigm shift in what we're doing. Traditionally, all our clothes were designed by designers. And we're moving it all to IT technicians. Because data, I'm using the word data for design, is available on the net. And you don't need somebody to come there and sit every day and tell you how to design the clothes. I think if I had 2 IT technicians that worked full-time for me, just looking for designs on the, and then improvising it to go local for what you are. I think that's one way. Number 2, AI has helped us a lot to predict what's going to sell. So our forecasting, our production becomes much more efficient. So just 2 simple ways that I think we're using it.
Fantastic. Puneet, you have tons of data across hotels. How are you leveraging it well?
You phrased it right. Technology is an enabler. It's your people who deliver the service. And for a very long time, as long as India has the demographic premium, I think we need to leverage that even more as a key differentiator. That does not mean not using technology. Use the data, but continue to humanize and not just, become artificial with the intelligence that you get. I think that will drive away our authenticity. Having said that, the data can help you achieve 2 things which can give you the pricing power. That is your premiumization and personalization. Premiumization because it could help you shift channels, and personalization is exactly what Ipsita just now explained in terms of tea and other things. We had planned it well on a lighter note for other reasons, but that the combination of personalization and premiumization gives you the pricing power. So that is what you have been seeing in the last few years in all segments, all consumer segments, and especially what Errol just now mentioned. The important word is limited edition. There is a growing number of consumers today in every consumer segment. And being part of Tata Group, I can tell you that whether it's a Jaguar Land Rover or it is Titan watches, some of them, they're coming up with limited edition. People don't want thousands of it to come out, maybe 10, 20, 30, and they're willing to pay much more than to get a discount. So I think that's where technology can help you, intelligence can help you to drive premiumization and personalization.
Thank you. Sandeep, any thoughts from you?
Yeah, so very quickly again, technology is at the core of everything we do to make a payment experience seamless, frictionless, secure, and now increasingly personalized, hyper-personalized. Today, as you think about it, a card, a Visa card in particular, ubiquitous acceptance, 99.69's, resilience and uptime. You add to that a layer of safety, security, the benefit of, dispute resolution and chargebacks, and then risk tools which are anchored heavily on AI and ML to at least mitigate risk and mitigate fraud, which is a big issue with digital payments. And then, all the rewards and status and financial empowerment that comes with it. But that is the world today. The future is way more exciting. And why do I say that? For number one, we have innovations coming to this market in the next 12 months, like payment passkeys, which will hopefully eliminate the need when you do an online transaction on a tokenized card of putting in 16 by 4 by 3, details of your card, because it's already saved, secured in a tokenized way, and you go through with your transaction in a matter of seconds. Apple Pay's launch in India is imminent. That's going to transform the mobile tap and pay experience, which is based on biometric authentication. I think the time to sunset OTPs has come, but obviously you need a secure alternative route to do that. We're really excited about something called the modern credential, which is like a 16-digit account number that allows the consumer to actually toggle between different payment methods. You use the same account or virtual account to use it as a debit card, a credit card for installment payments as per your choice, as per your use case or need. And basically, for the entire life cycle of the consumer, you don't have to keep changing cards. You just have the same reference number or the same account number. This is something we've already launched in Japan, in the US, and it's going to come to India soon. And last but not the least, the unbelievable power that agentic AI will unleash on basically intelligent commerce. Just the way we search, the way we shop, the way we pay, with AI-enabled cards which will be embedded in the payment experience. Now, you could either leave it to your agent to make the payment or do the last leg yourself, but it's completely embedded, completely intuitive. So the future is way more exciting than the present.
Thank you. Maybe just 10 seconds from you, Ipsita, in a role. How will the future consumer be different from today?
Well, I think the future consumer will be a lot more purposeful. Lot more, whatever they consume will have a reason behind it. The future consumer will consume not just for materialistic possession, they will consume to create memories, because it is this memories that leads to word of mouth. And it is with this word of mouth that brands like us, and I'm going to be a little selfish here, brands like us will survive, because it is what makes us authentic. It is what gets the word of mouth out there to know who we are and our story out there as well.
Thank you. I think what a rich discussion we've had. I think to recap in 30 seconds, we started with the evolving Indian consumer who's a lot more aspirational, a lot more connected, a lot more experientially demanding, and how different companies across products and services are tailor-making their business model to serve these evolving needs, leveraging personalization in a big way, driving premiumization in a big way, providing experiences which are tailor-made to different audiences, and being future ready through use of technology, but equally, if not more importantly, leveraging the values and instilling the right culture in the team. I think all of these are done. There's no doubt that all brands will stand the test of time and evolving consumer. With that, I put this to an end. Thank you very much, panelists. You've been lovely. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you so much to our panelists for a fabulous discussion and such sharp insight from a cross-section of industries.
We'll just give them a minute for the photo op before we continue. Thank you, panelists. From daily habits to premium choices, it's clear that the Indian consumer isn't just evolving, they're setting the pace.
Let's also move on to our next conversation. And this is one that everyone's been waiting for, and one of the highlights, or one of the continuing highlights of day 2.
So, Abha, one of the big takeaways from this discussion, if I may, was, I think, the last point that Rahul made. Consumption isn't just about buying. Why people buy? Are they purpose-driven? Are they materialistic? Is it about identity, aspiration, or confidence in where the country is headed?
Well, the story of the new Indian consumer is really the story of a nation coming into its own, young, ambitious, and unafraid to demand the best.
And that's a perfect note to carry forward as we continue today's conversations.
Few nations have navigated the shifting contours of global power with as much clarity and confidence as India.
From deft crisis diplomacy during the Ukraine conflict to chairing a high-stakes G20 and shaping conversations on the Indo-Pacific, India's voice on the global stage has never been more distinctive.
Much of that voice comes down to one man, a former diplomat, ambassador, and now the architect of India's foreign policy posture in an increasingly multipolar world.
Now, to explore diplomacy in a multipolar world, the India way, he's in conversation with the executive editor at ET Politics, Pranab Dal Samanta. Please join us in welcoming the Honorable Minister of External Affairs, Dr.
Good morning, Dr. Jaishankar. Always a pleasure to have you. Our guest here needs no introduction, so I'm not going to waste much time. Troubled days, tough playing conditions.
So, is that a question or an observation?
A question.
Well, things are a little complicated because I think lot of changes in lot of accounts, some very important ones, and it isn't specific to us. I think that's the state of the world. If you go anywhere in the world and ask probably any foreign minister, they probably give you the same answer.
It's true. But we all have been so focused on the US conversation. It's sort of taken over everything else and a lot of the mind space. Now, we all are fondly remembering those days when the reset happened. We're talking about at least 2.5 decades of work. You were at the start. How do you feel today?
Well, look, I've always maintained that what has been happening for the last 25 years, I mean, I would, even in my writings or other occasions, I've really sort of identified probably Clinton's visit as the major inflection point, then the nuclear deal as the next one, then probably PM Modi's visit in 2014 as the next one. So we've had developments. I would say the overall trend has always been net positive. It's not like we have not had issues with the US. We've had. I mean, I remember, for example, a lot of pressures we got on Pakistan during the George Bush time, at the very time when nuclear deal was also being negotiated. So there have been issues. There were issues even with China. During Obama's time, there was this whole idea of a G2. So what happens with the passage of time, everything looks smooth and nice, and you think this was preordained and it was going to happen. The reality is, it's always, relations, particularly with big countries who have multiple stakes, and we ourselves today are a big country also with multiple relations. They are bound to, there'll be areas where you work together, there'll be areas where you argue with each other. That's the nature of it. I think the key would be to say, okay, at the end of it all, overall, are you ahead? And that's been largely the trend. So yes, right now, I think there are issues. It's pretty open. But I would not, therefore, take it, first of all, it's not that we've not had issues before. And I would not say, therefore, other parts of the relationship where the convergences are strong and things are moving, that's not there. That is very much there.
But you've not had a US president come down so hard on India publicly, and also his key advisors, and then slapping you with tariffs and now national security tariffs at the same time when we have a strategic relationship. I mean, we need to explain this or understand this for the audience also and generally.
Well, we've not had a US president who's conducted foreign policy as publicly as the current one. That itself is a departure. That's not limited to India. That's limited. In fact, for that matter, who's not conducted his domestic policies as publicly as this one too. So I think we got to understand, before I come to India-US, that the President Trump's way of dealing with the world, even dealing with his own country, is a very major departure from the traditional orthodox manner of doing so. I'm just giving you some examples. Say, the applications of tariff in this manner, even for trade, is novel. The application of tariffs on non-trade issues is even more so. The fact that a lot of this is said in public, often the first pronouncement is in public, is even more unusual. So this is a situation which the entire world is facing. Now, where we are concerned, I think we have at this moment 3 issues. First of all, trade. And I think in my mind, that's really the major issue in terms of the negotiations which are underway. And, negotiations are still going on. But the bottom line is, we have some red lines.
You say negotiations are still going on because we heard the team is not coming.
No, look, I mean, negotiations are still going on in the sense that nobody said the negotiations are off. I mean, and people do talk to each other. I mean, it's not like there's a kutti there. So look, there is a what happens is we have red lines in the negotiations. We have to be clear as to red lines by definition are lines to be maintained and defended. Keeping that in mind, see what we get. And frankly, where we are concerned, the red lines are primarily the interests of our farmers and to some extent of our small producers. So when people pronounce that we have succeeded or failed or, where are you? The bottom line is, my counter question is, we as a government are committed to defend the interests of our farmers and our small producers. We are very determined on that. That's not something which we can compromise on. So anybody who thinks that, who criticizes what we are doing, my counter question is, are you therefore willing to compromise on those interests? Because I'm not. The second issue, in a way, is being presented as an oil issue. But why I say is being presented is because the same arguments which have been used to target India have not been applied to the largest oil importer, which is China, has not been applied to the largest LNG importer, which is the European Union. When people say we are funding the war or putting money in the coffers of Putin, India-European Union trade is bigger than India-Russia trade. So is American money not, European money not putting money into Putin's coffers? So, and if you look even at trade, look at countries
You say they are getting more from Europe than from us? Is that the point?
The overall India, Russia-EU trade is bigger than Russia-India trade. So my point is, look, if the argument is energy, there are bigger buyers. If the argument is who's trading more, there are bigger traders. If the argument is, by the way, percentage of increase, okay? Now, yes, some countries haven't increased the percentage because they've gone and bought oil from Iran, okay? To which also the Americans have objections. So my point, look, there is a certain inconsistency here. And if you look even at exports, I mean, India's exports to Russia have grown, but not that much. I can think of some other countries whose exports have grown dramatically after 2022. And if our exports have suddenly surged, you know what that means.
You won't name those countries?
I think go look at the trade statistics, it's pretty obvious. So here's my point. At the end of it all, I think there is an issue of decisions which we make in our national interest. That's our right. So in my business, we would say that's what strategic autonomy is about. And the third issue pertains to our own region, which is the issue of mediating. Since 1970s, for more than 50 years now, there's a national consensus in this country that we do not accept mediation in our relations with Pakistan. So here's my point. When it comes to the trade, the interests of farmers, when it comes to our strategic autonomy, when it comes to opposition to mediation, this government is very clear. Our positions are there. If anybody disagrees with us, please tell the people of India that you're not prepared to defend the interests of farmers. Please tell the people of India you don't value strategic autonomy. We do. We do. We will do whatever we have to do to maintain it.
There are allegations which come from the other side of not just purchase of oil, but profiting from oil. How do you respond to those accusations?
Look, it's funny. You have people who work for a pro-business American administration accusing other people of doing business. Okay, that's really curious. But here's the point. If you have a problem buying oil from India, oil or refined products, don't buy it. Nobody forced you to buy it. I mean, but Europe buys, America buys. So you don't like it, don't buy it.
That's a good point. But at the same time, you've come out in public and now things are that with the previous Biden administration, there was an understanding of sorts, or
no, there wasn't on the oil issue. Yeah, it was an understanding. There were a series of very explicit conversations.
If you could
very explicit conversations saying, look, we have no issues with your buying. Look, how did that whole price cap idea come? If the Europeans and the Americans, I mean, you can't say I object to your buying oil, but I have a price cap. The idea of a price cap is you accept that people buy that oil. So the fact that you devised the price cap meant that you accept that there's an oil trade going on with Russia. Otherwise, you wouldn't need a price cap.
But you've been, I mean, there was that India's role in keeping the price stable, I was trying to...
Absolutely.
There were clear conversations on that?
In 2022, there was deep nervousness because oil prices went up. There was great nervousness, international nervousness about the price of oil. And there was there were a set of conversations with different people in the American administration at that time that if India wanted to buy Russian oil, that's fine by us because it will stabilize the price of oil. And by the way, those, after January, there were no conversations with the current administration saying don't do that.
And this never came up in any of the
Nope.
trade conversations? Never? Nope. Anybody ever asked you?
No, I wasn't doing the trade. But no, it's not. Look, our trade conversations pertain to our bilateral trade. Our trade conversations did not, the trade conversations did not go into...
But they are linking it, so they should have obviously...
Yeah, but, as I said, that was not the case. There were no discussions on this issue before their position was made public.
They've used the term national security tariff. We had Shashi Tharoor yesterday who called it sanctions. How do you look at national security tariff as just the way it has been framed and sort of pushing India in that?
Param, I'm not going to get into definitional debates. My point is a very clear point, which is that we are buying oil to stabilize the oil markets. Yes, it is in our national interest. We have never pretended otherwise, but we also say it is in global interest. And you call it what you will, I don't think that is the relevant point. I think the relevant point is that levying tariffs on a country for doing what it has been doing openly with, and which other countries continue to do in larger volumes than us, is, in our view, unfair and unjustified. Beyond that point, whether you call it this or that, I don't think makes a difference.
How do you see the road ahead?
Well, I see the road ahead as, we are two big countries. We need to have conversations. We are, as I said, the lines are not cut. People are talking to each other. And we will see where that goes.
We hear that an ambassador has been appointed.
Yeah, I read about it too.
No views yet on that?
Look, I am a foreign minister. I don't comment on ambassadorial appointments of other countries, that too in public.
No, but it's a good development in one way if you would get it. I'll leave that to you. But you were also, correct me if I'm wrong, sir, you were the first person to go into Kremlin after Alaska?
Not the, as the first foreign minister.
Yes.
Foreign minister to visit Russia and I guess so.
And met Putin.
Yeah, I guess so.
What is the sense you got of that conversation? Everybody's linking us to that conversation as well.
Well, there were two parts to it. I mean, one part of it was our own relations, and we have a practice of annual summits with the Russians. We are planning one at the end of the year. So a lot of it was devoted to what would happen there. It's an annual exercise. That's how the relationship grows. And I'm like the account keeper for the non-military side of it. So the way it is divided is defense minister manages the military side. I do the rest. So a lot of it was devoted to what would happen, what's happening in our relationship, where are we going, what will we do, things like that. And there were some good developments. I think our trade has grown a bit. We would like to grow it further. There's been some mobility of people. We would like to see that increase. We want more market access in Russia, things like that. The other part of it, of course, was the global picture, and particularly post, since President Putin had come out of Alaska, so he spoke to me about his views on, what was happening, and so.
Could you give us a window or an understanding of how that conversation has gone and how it's looking in the ground since you're coming from there?
Well, obviously I'm constrained in many respects in doing that, but I mean overall, look, where we stand, we've been very clear from the very start that we would like to see an early end to the conflict. We've also taken the view that in any conflict, it's for the parties concerned to sort it out. Okay. Now, in this particular case, because the parties concerned are also comfortable and the Americans took the initiative, we've been supportive of the efforts, because we are supportive of any efforts which would bring about that change. Now, it is a very complex, complex situation there, because there are military complexities, there are political complexities, there's a whole history there. It involves, NATO, European Union. So there are a lot of moving parts there. So it's not as simple as sometimes it appears, in the media. But, overall, as I said, our good wishes are there for an early end to the conflict on terms which obviously the two sides have to settle.
Mark the Alaska round as good progress as far as you know?
Certainly I think it would be a fair assessment, and you don't need a meeting with President Putin to say that. I think it was visible that in Alaska a lot of things were talked about and some things were agreed about. So to that extent, yes, it was progress.
We are fresh out of Operation Sindoor, and we saw the conflict, the way it played out and the way the Pakistanis fought with the help of Chinese, not just equipment, but as our military officials have also gone on record of, live cooperation between China and Pakistan. At the same time, you've had conversations which relate to India-China relationship, and there has been improvement on the northern borders, and your disengagement process has also moved at a decent pace, which has led to certain positive outcomes on the bilateral front. We now see a lot of easing up of economic restrictions which the Chinese had made. Now, how do we read it? Because there are some quarters which say there's a reset, or is it just normalization? How does industry also here understand it? Because China is an important economic partner.
The nature of your business, media, in a way, is to correlate what happens with something which happened immediately before or in the same time frame. It's natural, understandable. The nature of my business is really to pursue relationships, accounts, problems over a much more extended timeline. I think that's important to understand, especially in this particular case. Now, take China. You know, what is actually on the agenda with China? We have problems which go back to the 1950s, which is, for example, the boundary question, okay? So, because other things happen, that has not gone away. In fact, that is very much still at the center stage, and it is in fact the maintenance of the peace and tranquility in the border areas that is a prerequisite for development of the relationship. So, you have a, I would say, a 50s, 60s, 70s, almost I would say 60 years, 70 years of, 80 years now of that problem. Then we have an issue which started in the early 2000s after China entered the WTO, which is the beginning of a trade deficit, and it rapidly became a concern. It didn't become a concern in 2025 or 24 or after 2014. I was ambassador in China from 2009 to 13, and I can tell you the growing trade deficit was an increasing concern for us. Okay, so you have a historical problem, then you have a problem which started maybe about 20, 25 years ago. Then we had some issues which came out of COVID. Okay, say for example, the stoppage of air flights, direct air flights, was an outcome of the COVID period. Even the halt to the Kailash Mansarovar Yatra, which is now resumed, also happened because of COVID. Then we had the Galwan clash and that very difficult period after that. And then there were steps. Oh, by the way, even during COVID, for example, some of the precautions which we took generally with regard to investments, please remember, was actually immediate post-COVID. They were in response to the economic uncertainties of the COVID.
Say press note reason?
No. I think, you know, even some of the investment issues which took place then. Because I think there was worry after COVID about takeover of companies when the valuations were dropping. Okay, so then you had the Galwan clash and that period, and then there were a set of issues which came out of it. So and then I must add to you, there are some issues which are of very recent origin. For example, the magnets for the auto industry. That is an outcome of a Chinese export control policy, which is a few months old. So it's not like there is one problem or one cluster of problems with a certain timeline. It is something, you know, different problems have different histories, you could say, and were at different levels of processing. Now, look at the solution side. You know, again, you brought up Sindoor, you referred to the fact that now, given what is happening in the current state in the world, I would actually point out to the fact that much of what is happening now, or what was agreed to when Minister Wang Yi was here, was actually decided last October when President Xi and Prime Minister met in Kazan. Some of it was followed up in November last year when Wang Yi and I met in Brazil, I think. So, look, it's not what I want you to understand is it's not black and white. It's not something has happened with America, so therefore immediately something has happened with China. I mean, if you are looking at the kind of things we announced now, air flights was not decided now. I mean, we are just operationalizing something we wanted to work out.
So there are parallel timelines which you can say
there are different timelines of different lengths on different problems.
And you're okay with segmenting it like that?
I think it would be a mistaken analysis to try and crunch everything and make it into a integrated response to a very specific situation. That's what, so there may be, you know, today, yes, of course, there is a global landscape. I'm not impervious to it. But I'm telling you that many of the things, I mean, for example, boundary, you know, this is the 24th or 25th round of talks between the SRs. Now, what they decided on boundary has been actually a subject of conversation for multiple rounds, some of them for 15 years. So they are not necessarily new concepts which were decided now because something is happening on some other account. So I want you to understand there is an evolution, there's a flow of that relationship. There are other relationships, but don't make this connect so tight and make it a causality. That's not the reality.
I think the idea is there a newfound political comfort with China which can lead to certain predictability on the economic side, particularly on the business side?
You know, okay, let me put it to you very simply. We have always maintained that if the border is stable, predictable, free of incidents, then there is a natural improvement in the rest of the relationship. So the border has been stable for some time now. And as the disengagement was completed, naturally it was logical that there would be an improvement in other areas. So I don't want you to overdraw, it's not like there's some great U-turn and now everything is great. I don't want you to go the other way around also, that the relationship is only full of problems and everything in it is negative. I think there is a sort of a ground somewhere in between. We do trade, there are things which are important for us. Again, if you look at the interests of the farmers of the country, I think a predictable flow of fertilizers is important. I think when you look at people in the infrastructure field, for them getting machinery out of China is important. For our auto industry, having uninterrupted flow of magnets is important. I think these are legitimate issues of our industry. We should take it up with China. And we should, if there are blockages, I think we owe it to the businesses and to the workers of India that we should address those issues.
The issue which we've been debating over the last 2 years is dependencies and supply chains. So the advice which has been in the current geopolitical environment, it is the unpredictability around supply chains, around building dependencies which then can lead to sudden shocks across industries. What's the geopolitical mantra for supply chains as we move ahead? Looking at, even though the frost settles on the India-China relationship, a new frost comes on the India-US, as you say, these things can be temporary. But looking at supply chains, how do you?
Say, Pranab, right now, what to do about supply chains, you shouldn't be looking here, you should be looking there. Okay?
I said the geopolitical mantra.
But the geopolitical, I'll tell you the answer. I think recent experience has taught us that don't be excessively dependent on a single supply chain or a single country source. Recent experience has also taught us don't be dependent on a single market. Okay? So it isn't just from the sourcing to the production, it is also from the production to the market. Now, that doesn't mean you switch off from somewhere, it means you diversify, it means you hedge, and most important, which is the continuous messaging from the government, it means you do more at home. Now, we know more at home is hard work, it is complicated, it requires a different, kind of effort, even particularly from business. That is why the emphasis on Atmanirbharta. So, looking at the geopolitics of our current end, I would really sort of analyze or prescribe. I've got problems at both ends. I've got a problem on the sourcing and the supply chain. I've got a problem post-production in the markets. So both are volatile. Both hold their own complications. And the best way of dealing with both is to de-risk it by having multiple options of supply chains coming into India, multiple options of production going out of India, but most important in India, which has a greater ability to plug as many parts of the supply chain, and nobody can do it perfectly, I accept that, as possible.
So Atmanirbharta is look at as much as you can.
Absolutely. No. And look, you know, again, it's completely understandable that people look at costs. You know, after all, what other metric would a business use other than cost? It's a no-brainer. But today, there is a cost to the risk, you know. But it isn't pure numerical cost. There is the uncertainty of supplies has a cost. The uncertainty of markets has a cost. I think they need to be factored in.
But if you look at the trend since the last decade maybe, everybody is weaponizing their commercial advantage. Say if it was China, we talked about weaponizing supply chains. Today you see Donald Trump, I would say weaponizing tariffs in one way is a form of weaponizing commerce. Do you think we have lesser options when it comes to that on the table? Both in terms of projecting and dealing with it?
Okay, even if you take away that hard term weaponize and say, how indispensable are you to everybody else? Because, you know, you need to be indispensable if you have to weaponize. So you've got to be able to consume things or produce things which only you can, or you can do in sufficient manner that other people have to make adjustments for you. I think that in a way is part of the Atmanirbharta that we are trying to encourage, which is that the more you are able to produce, the more unique things you are able to produce, the more you get into the global supply chain. The fact that our consumption, because, you know, consumption can also be a power. You know, it's not just production which is a power. So, at the end of the day, our position in the world would be very much a function of how we are able, how unique we are, how important we are, how to that extent indispensable we are to global economics, to the production, the supply chain, the production, the consumption, the entire eco-cycle.
The consumption side, you might have an advantage. I mean, we could see as a consumer on oil, we are making difference in terms of prices.
Look, again, it's not, I mean, in some cases, like some countries set out. China did it with rare earths. I mean, but that would be more of a standout. Often you take an industry and you become so good at it that then you start becoming a key player in that industry. So that's really part of how a big economy becomes more critical in global calculations.
And that is a strategic geopolitical requirement also now, you would say?
Yes, ideally, I mean, but it's easy for me to say it. Mm-hmm. You know, it has to be done by people for it to reach that level.
Sure. Coming closer home to Pakistan, were you surprised at the manner in which Pakistan, US have come to, at least the Trump administration, have suddenly cozied up and come together? Did it catch you by surprise?
Look, you know, they have a history with each other, and they have a history of overlooking their history. So what happens is it's not the first time we've seen things. And the interesting thing is when you look sometimes at the certificates, say somebody in the military will give, you know, it's the same military which went into Abbottabad and found you know who there. So the issue in a way is when countries are very focused on doing politics of convenience, they keep trying to do this, you know, and some of it can be tactical, some of it can have some other benefits or calculations, but again, look at obviously I respond to the situation or the challenge of the day, but I also do so always keeping in mind the larger structural sort of strengths of the relationship, the confidence that comes from it. So I take it in that spirit, you know. I know finally what I'm about. I know what are my strengths. I know what are the importance and the relevance of my relationship. So that's what guides me.
But just now we are a little distance away from Operation Sindoor. I know mediation is not exactly something which must have happened, or our position has been very clear historically on that. But was the United States helpful at all during that period?
Look,
did it play a constructive role of any sort?
I mean, it is a fact that at that time, phone calls were made, you know. Phone calls were made by the US, phone calls were made by other countries as well. I mean, this is not a secret. Yeah. I mean, at least in my case, almost every phone call I had, definitely every American phone call I had, is there on my X account. So when something like this happens, countries do call up. I mean, after all, don't I call up? I mean, when Israel-Iran was happening, I called up. When Russia-Ukraine was happening, I called up. So it's in today's international relations, because it is an interdependent world and countries feel, okay, something is happening somewhere, I should know, and particularly, I would say, those who have a stronger history of international relations will do that. But, you know, that is one thing. It is something quite different to assert mediation, or to assert that an outcome which was negotiated between India and Pakistan was not negotiated between India and Pakistan, it was.
And that was a consequence of military actions, the way it played out?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, look, I've done this before, so you don't want me. I tell people that if on the 9th night we had, you know, President Vance, Vice President Vance conveying that, you know, the Pakistanis were going to do a big attack, and then 10th morning, the Pakistanis now ask for talking to DGMO. What happened in the intervening period? What happened in the intervening period was very bad things to their airfields. I mean, to me, the causality is very clear. The causality is a military happening. You know, ultimately, you know, how does the course of conflict progress? Yes, it can progress through reason, but mostly it progresses through events on the ground. So something happened militarily on the 10th morning. Now, please look at what happened on 10th morning, and the pictures of the Pakistani airfields tell you what happened on 10th morning.
But still, the Pakistanis seem to have found new currency in Washington, and it's probably coming from the crypto route. So is that now a new channel of diplomacy which is working in Washington, and that you have to contend with it? Where are we on these? Because see, a lot of countries are facing these difficulties. A lot of allies of US are facing.
For that, you have to get another minister to sit here and answer that. No, it's not me.
But does it become a part of your folder at any place?
No, look, you know, we negotiate or we discuss with other countries what are our policies. I mean, because somebody else has some other instrument in their toolkit, doesn't automatically mean that therefore I have to acquire it. I have what I have, they have what they have.
But do you think it's becoming difficult to deal with the Trump administration through its own system? Rather, the personal or direct or maybe certain other parallel approaches are at work which are more productive in terms of outcomes?
Well, I think we started off with the agreement that we are in unusual times and the methods of diplomacy are very, very different from what they used to be.
So what is, I'll take it from you, what is the India way?
Look, you adapt to the landscape and the nature of the challenge. I mean, so if there is a relationship which has to be addressed in a different manner, if you want results, you figure out how to crack the problem. I mean, that's what diplomats do.
So a lot of what was happening in the past few years, the Quad was at the center of it. And it's a very diverse agenda. It opened up many conversations in technology. But today, BRICS has taken over. So where is the Quad conversation? And these plurilaterals which you had so craftily put together, what's the fate?
No, look, I'm not sure I agree with your question. I think the Quad is still the Quad, and the BRICS was always the BRICS. I mean, when we did the Quad, the BRICS didn't go away. And as Quad progressed, BRICS also progressed. So you are putting it almost as alternatives, whereas in fact it is a core belief of Indian foreign policy that countries like us should not be forced to, make binary choices.
So we expect a Quad summit by the end of the year?
We had a Quad foreign ministers meeting this summer in early July, if my memory serves me right. And after that, I think different parts of the system are talking to each other. So in between the Quad meetings are held. We haven't made further decisions about what to do in Quad. So that's quite natural. I think in the case of BRICS came in the news partly because we had a BRICS summit. And partly because it came in the news because people put it in the news. So I think in the next week you'll probably see the Shanghai Cooperation Organization in the news because the meeting will happen. So it will, the news cycle moves as per the events of that time. But what is not in the news cycle doesn't stop to exist because it's not in the news cycle. It still continues.
So you're still sticking to the timelines agreed in the February visit of the Prime Minister to Washington?
On what?
On the timelines which were there, that by September or October we'll do have this and that.
I think at this time, as I said, we are looking at the issues rather than, it's not a clock-driven process, I mean, there's not a chess game where you are moving and you're also looking at the clock. I get that.
And what do we expect from the visit, the SCO meet, since it's happening right now?
Well, I think the SCO has a value in itself because if you look at the membership, it covers a lot of countries which are quite different from other organizations of which we are part. We are very much, we are an important constituent of the Eurasian landmass. And the SCO primarily devotes itself to that. SCO also has a particular, the original mandate of the SCO was to fight separatism and terrorism, and there were what were called three evils at that time. For us, because that is very much part of the overall threat scenario that we see, I think it's important that we are there, we make our presence felt, we shape the outcomes, and we say where we go.
Do we expect a summit-level meeting with the Chinese over there on the sidelines?
I think, the program for that would be announced in the coming days.
All right. You've been very, very defensive than your usual front-footedness, but I guess times are such, and thank you for making time for us, even in a very difficult situation. And as I said, tough playing conditions. Wish you all the best, Mr. Jaishankar. Thank you once again for making time.
Thank you.
Thank you, Pranab. Before we move into our next session, a quick reminder. Simultaneous Hindi to English translation is available. Please collect your headsets from the designated counter. It's at the back of the hall. And don't forget to put them back at the end of the session. Once again, go ahead.
Ladies and gentlemen, at this time, I'd also like to remind you to keep your phones on silent. If you're sharing your favorite moments online, don't forget to tag us using ETWLF 2025. Our next session, titled The Next Innings, Innovation and Expansion in World Cricket, explores how the game is evolving on the field, in the boardroom, and in the hearts of a new generation of fans.
To reflect on that transformation, we are joined by two people at the very center of it. One is shaping the sport's global future, steering everything from tournament formats to audience strategy.
The other has defined an era of Indian cricket through sheer consistency, grace and quiet leadership, raising the bar not just for women's cricket but for the game itself.
Now, in conversation with Srinivas Rao, content head sports at Times Internet, please welcome the CEO of the International Cricket Council, Sanjog Gupta.
And one of the most iconic professional cricketers of our time, Mithali Raj.
Srinivas, Sanjog, Mithali, can we have you on stage?
And can we have a huge round of applause for our speakers that are just...
Hello everyone, and welcome to a repeat of what I would like to believe is the most interesting session in the WLF, which is sport. I remember last year around the same time, the entire audience, most of the audience was busy practicing their pre-lunch, post-lunch yawning when Manu Bhaker came on the stage, and well, everybody was in rapt attention. So this time, I'm glad to welcome former India captain, great Mithali Raj. Thank you so much for taking the time out. And the newly appointed CEO at the International Cricket Council, Mr. Sanjog Gupta. Thank you, Sanjog. Well, it's the World Cup time. So we really don't have to scratch our heads in terms of looking at topics to begin with. The Women's World Cup is round the corner. We have an ODI giant sitting here who, the highest number of runs in the format. And for the longevity in the game, it doesn't get bigger than Mithali. Mithali, let's start with you. What are your thoughts? The World Cup coming around the corner. I keep saying this, and I was talking to her right now about how it is time for India to get its hands around the coveted trophy. Your thoughts?
Well, it's a big platform, an ODI World Cup, and that too at home. A great opportunity for Indian team. They've been doing really well in the last couple of years, especially in the one-day format. Well, I'm still looking forward to the Australians announcing their side because they are touring India in September, the coming month, and they have a bilateral series. So that's an opposition we all try to beat, especially in a platform like World Cup. And yes, India does have a very good chance. We can talk about the conditions and the preparations that BCCI was able to give them, getting them to play a lot more series with a very good quality oppositions, and they've done really well in England as well, winning both formats, T20 and ODI series. But then it all boils down to the big games against Australia, against England, but we all are excited because I was part of the World Cup in 2013 when we played. I led India, and 1997 also India hosted the One Day World Cup at home. So this is another big opportunity for the Indian women's cricket team to, take it from the England series, try and put up a good show for all of us.
Well, we do have a good team and we have a good chance, but I'm going to come back to you on this. What do we need to do to get our hands on the trophy? That's the most important part, but I'll come back to you on that. Sanjo, I keep thanking, with the thought that the last 50-over World Cup was in India. And pardon me for saying this, but this is my personal view on the thing that had a 50-over World Cup not been in India and probably been in any other part of the world, would it have had the same kind of buzz considering the consumption that happens in India? And I'm talking to you about, what kind of consumption does a format have at the global level? Your thoughts on another 50-over World Cup coming up? Where does the format stand, in today's day and time?
Firstly, thanks so much for having me here, Srini, and thank you to Satyan for inviting me to speak at this prestigious forum, and thank you to everyone who's here to listen to us. I'll answer that in three parts. The first part of this has to do with the particular insight that you've touched upon. I think it's fair to say that before the 23 World Cup, the commentary around the 2019 World Cup in England was pretty much the same. So, and it remains to be seen whether the commentary around the 2027 World Cup is also going to be the same. And I'm now referring to the men's World Cups. The World Cups, by their very nature, are very different from any other format, competition structure, etc., right? Because they're very high in context. The world plays, and it's an opportunity to see a champion being crowned for a title which is truly coveted by the world. It's the best teams that play it. It's the best players who are showcased. And there are genuinely narratives from all over the world, at least for all teams that are represented in the World Cup, which power the popularity of it. So to cut a long story short, every World Cup seems to be seen as the pinnacle of that format and that sport. Now, whether that's the T20 format, whether that's the ODI format, or more recently, the Test format, and what we saw with the World Test Championship final, despite India not featuring in the final, it was the most watched non-India Test match in India. Despite England not featuring in the final, 107,000 people showed up at the stadium to watch it. So as soon as the prestige value of an event goes up to the stature of being the one competition that matters the most, and that is true now for the Women's World Cup as well, which is coming up, the normal patterns or insights don't apply equally. So in a nutshell, the World Cup is a World Cup. It doesn't always reflect what you may believe are trends and patterns for the rest of the game.
So, it's like I keep saying this, that the Indian consumption market is like the Indian thali. There is roti, sabzi, dal, chawal, but there's always space for something extra in that thali to go. And it never ends. Whatever you add, it just keeps adding to your palate. It just keeps getting more and more delicious. From that standpoint, again, Mithali, we've seen this massive growth globally in women's cricket over the last, kind of few years. Maybe before actually, the whole buzz around it began before the WPL got launched. I've seen some women's cricket events, especially the World Cup in Australia in 2020, kind of grab serious amounts of attention. Can you kind of give us a perspective on how you've seen the space evolve, kind of considering that you've seen cricket, post-turn of the century, where it has seen its share of struggles. I mean, I've seen enough of women's cricket, what what the scene was early turn of the century, early 2000s, when cricketers, women cricketers in India would strive to have, basic attention from the cricket board. I mean, and it was least forthcoming. That to today's times, when we've seen it evolve leaps and bounds and privatization has come in. Your perspective on the journey?
I think it's so important it to be marketed, because women's cricket is a product that is on a rise and has serious scope. And as you mentioned, from the 90s to early 2000s, and you see now every World Cup, even Sanjog was talking about, World Cups are very different. From the players' perspective, we've always thought that that's a platform there where, if we do really well, we can grab a lot of attention of the people to come and watch women's cricket. So there was this, if I can give you an example, like in 2005, India was a runners-up. But still, we couldn't really get people to rally around women's cricket in our country. It took nearly more than a decade, like 2017, where, we were again a runners-up, and we've seen how India has responded to women's cricket when we arrived back. So it has a lot to do with visibility. It has a lot to do with the matches being televised, being broadcasted. And I think that has really helped the sport to grow like leaps and bounds. And it also helped the profile of the sport, the profile of the players. You were talking about the T20 World Cup in Australia. I was very much there to watch that finals. I think somewhere in the world stage, India makes it to the finals because we have Indians everywhere. So we get a lot of people turn up to the stadiums, and that creates a very different environment, particularly the World Cup finals when you have India-Australia or India-England. There's so many people who turn up to support our team. So, and that has also grown because young children turn up to watch the women's sport. So there you're creating, like, sowing a seed. This could be a dream for them as well. The parents now start to realize that it is no more a passion sport, but a professional sport. We've all played for passion. We enjoyed playing a sport. The joy of playing just a sport without, too much expectations. But today, you cannot really say it's a passion sport. There is a serious professionalism in the sport.
I mean, your own story, where you had to take a call as at some point in your life where you wanted to play cricket or pursue dancing seriously, and can you go a little deeper into what helped you make that choice? Did you at some point realize that you were a better cricketer than kind of dancer? Like what made you?
Well, Sri, I think, don't underestimate my dancing skills. At that point of time, I was very good in dance as well. But I think there are two very different fields altogether. That's more cultural, dance, and cricket is a sport. But what I enjoyed as a young kid was the attention. Getting my, even if it is a passport size picture on the newspaper, the sports line at that point of time, and people talking about it in school, you're suddenly a star in the school. So that is what probably got me more inclined towards cricket than dance, though I was still giving dance stage shows, performing a group performance in dance, but I felt the appreciation, the acknowledgement from people around, even if it was a small community, I enjoyed that. And then when I represented the country, I could see the pride in my dad's eyes, like, my daughter plays for India. So these were things which really drove me more serious into cricket. There did come a time when I felt like, after that, what is there? After you spend about 15 years and then still people, the general public, the perception of people in India took a lot of time, years to change that. Unless and until you got to see women's cricket on television, people really couldn't associate it with women's cricket. Do we have women's team? We've never seen them play. They've seen other sports as well, but women's cricket, women playing cricket, they've not seen much of it on television. So I think that is where it changed a lot. I spoke the other day at the event in 2009 World Cup when I was really on the verge of quitting. I saw my game on television for the first time. I saw myself, and like the men's cricket, there were commentators commentating on my game, on my batting, and I felt nice because finally there is someone else is appreciating my game. Yes, you have your teammates, you have your coaches, appreciating your hard work, but there is an athlete will always have that something like, I need the country to sit up and watch me play. And that happened then. And then I thought, let me play for another couple of years, and I ended up playing for a few more years. But and I think that's pretty much the story of those cricketers in the early 2000s. But the current generation, I think, they do have their own challenges, but at least they don't have to start from like ground zero where we started. For them, it is pretty much they have a structure, they have a pathway, they have role models in the form of women cricketers, which we didn't have because we didn't see them on television. But today's time, each and every player who plays for India is a known face.
Well, which young sportsperson has not liked or not been, excited about seeing a mugshot in the newspaper? I remember a story about Rahul Dravid, where one morning as a young kid, he woke up and he saw his name in the Times of India, and he was in his teens, early teens, and he saw that Dravid was published as David. The R went missing. So he somehow, as a young fellow, found his way to the Times of India office to make that correction, and then he said that every time he would then score any amount of runs, next morning he would open the Times of India to see if it was Dravid or David by any chance. So yes, that excitement never goes away. Coming back to a little more serious side on the subject, Natalie, you talked about how it was great to see yourself first on the television and people talking about you. It's just 3 to 4 years ago, on a very different subject, I happened to find myself in a small village near Bhubaneswar in Odisha, Pekata, where I saw a young girl, part of a larger sports establishment, trying to make her mark. She was 12 or 13. Electricity in her village was as old as her, to give you a context of where she was coming from. And I asked her, I said, what do you want to do in life? As a sports person, what is your aspiration? She said, I love 2 to 3 sports. All I want to do is play for India. That's very clearly, she had that determination. And I pray to God that, she ends up doing that. Having said that, Sanjog, from an ICC standpoint, where you all are the pallbearers of the game, what's the larger economic, socio-economic kind of context for the sport where women's cricket is concerned? What's the big picture that the ICC should be looking at in shaping the broader contours of the game?
Look, I think firstly, let's just establish very clearly, globally, women's sport is having a moment. And it has had several moments, and it's now beginning to turn into a movement. And that's not just limited to cricket. It's pretty much the case for sports around the world. There are enough and more examples of the number 2 sport in markets now being the women's variant of the most popular men's sport. And what has contributed most significantly to it is the emergence of fans, right? There are core fans who are now willing to be affiliated to women's sport and cheer for the women's teams just the way that they cheer for the men's teams. Because for the longest time, there was a perception problem with women's sport, and particularly with women's cricket. The skill levels, the athleticism, the quality of the game, all of these were considered to be somewhat inferior in perception terms when they weren't actually. And a lot of it started changing largely because of 3 big things. One, heroes. The heroes who emerged, who caught the imagination of young girls and boys because they had inspirational stories. People like Mithali and many other cricketers who've come after that. 2, investments. I think most people don't know that cricket and ICC events, cricket is one of the few, I think the only major team sport which has the prize money of the men's and women's events being equal for ICC. The WPL is a classic example of how you attract private investment towards a purpose. Over the last couple of years, we've seen growing interest from commercial partners who are choosing to partner with the women's events, the ICC women's events, because they believe the sense of purpose that women's cricket delivers is suitable for their brands. So there is significant investment now beginning to flow towards women's sport and women's cricket in particular. I think the third big thing is just vision and purpose, and the belief that one needs to have that this genuinely is an opportunity for the future. And as someone who's seen the growth of this vision for women's sport, perhaps mostly over the last 5 years, a lot of the credit must go to the off-field leadership. Whether it's at the BCCI or at the ICC, and I want to particularly call out the ICC chairman Jaishankar, in his previous avatar at the BCCI and now at the ICC, is a big champion of the women's game and what the potential of the women's game can be for the future, not just for India, but for around the world. We are talking about the Women's World Cup in India that's coming up immediately, but there is already enough and more of a narrative around the Women's T20 World Cup next year in England. And that's already beginning to capture the imagination of young boys and girls in that country. So I think what has changed dramatically for women's cricket and women's sport in general is the affiliation that fans have begun to form with the sport, with the heroes, with the moments, and you mentioned societal impact, with the culture. I think the acceptance of young girls in outdoor spaces today playing sport is much higher than perhaps the acceptance was when Mithali grew up playing sport. Parents are now actively encouraging their daughters to go out and play. There used to be a time when the stigma attached with going out and playing, or the injuries or the scars that may come from from playing outdoor sport, was enough for mothers to tell their daughters not to go out and play. And a lot of that has changed. So what starts as a moment of inspiration over a period of time with sustained effort, investment, and all the work and the inspirational stories of cricketers like Mithali, Smriti, Harmanpreet, etc., turns into culture, which then becomes movement. We are in that phase where there is culture. There is culture for women's cricket in India, both at a participation level and at the elite level. And this culture is quickly becoming a movement because it's, as you are well aware, sport tends to be a microcosm of society. So this effectively is a reflection of the evolving perspective and the progress for women in this country, that they're now occupying spaces that were considered to be bastions for men in the conventional sense.
Very true. To be fair to BCCI, I mean, they work tirelessly in trying to cop criticism from time to time. I mean, they never give up. But we need to be kinder to them in terms of, once in a while, they also do some exceptionally good stuff. When launching of the Women's Premier League was clearly one such move. I mean, until it actually happened, me as someone who tracks the ecosystem, I wasn't really sure if BCCI had the wherewithal to pull it off. But the way in which it was done in terms of trying to kind of get the machinery moving all in good time was a very, very exceptional effort. So from that standpoint, I want to go back to Mithali. What has the WPL done in changing the canvas of Indian cricket? Again, I don't just ask this from an on-field perspective where, again, the game has more eyeballs in terms of how it's consumed on television, etc. But outside of that, whether it's in the sponsorship industry, whether it's in terms of, a young talent taking up to the game a little more excitedly than what it used to in the past, what is the larger change that WPL has brought about? And your larger perspective in terms of how good it has been, good or bad, whatever. I mean, your thoughts.
Well, I think it's one of those very important milestones for women's cricket in India, I would say, because it's played a very vital role in the growth of the sport. You see a lot of young players being identified by franchisees as young as about 17, 18-year-old, and they invest in these players, in these cricketers for a couple of years. And it's also an opportunity, or it presents an opportunity for players who want to make a comeback into the Indian team or feel that they are probably at the end of the career, but still have another shot at, representing the country. So this is a platform if they get picked by any franchisee. And in terms of sponsorship, I think it also helps the players, because once you start representing a franchise, once you start playing for them, you're on television. So there you attract sponsor deals as well, whether it is ads or for your equipments. There are a lot of stories comes out of Women's Premier League as well, from very humble backgrounds. The girls make it to the franchise level, and it's such a proud moment for their family. And it's a financial security apart from the career option that they get. And here I have to share a story, because I'm a mentor for Andhra Cricket Association. So I went and met up this under 15 girls, under 15 to 16-year-olds in one of the scams, and I interacted a lot with them, and I told them, what is your goal? Just write it down on a paper and give it to me. So out of like about 18 girls, there are 12, 13 girls who said their goal is to play in WPL. So that's the impact it has brought into the players. Like earlier, when I was a 16-year-old, if you would have asked me, playing for India was my goal. For these girls, they want to break into Women's Premier League, because they feel that is going to help them in terms of their sport, in terms of their skill, getting the interaction firsthand with playing alongside with the best in the world, the sort of coaching system that they have. So it makes them, in fact, I can say that far more fearless than what we were as a youngsters, because they don't shy away from asking us questions or, interaction. I think that's what Women's Premier League has done, that it creates that opportunity for everybody. There is scope for, say, for a 15-year-old to 35-year-old as well, age no bar, to get into this tournament. And even the parents, as I spoke about this support, when they turn up to the academies, they question, like, will my girl play WPL in another 2-3 years' time? So that's how Women's Premier League has done, is that it's probably given them that aspiration and the stories to inspire many more young girls and their families to get into the sport.
I'll just quickly add 2 points to what Mithali just said. I think what the WPL is doing for Indian women's cricket and cricket in general is what IPL did for men's cricket many years back, right? The expansion of the opportunity size of being able to get the kind of exposure that Mithali talked about, and also having it as a viable career option beyond the 15, 20 players who play for India itself is galvanizing enough and more people to believe that it's genuinely an opportunity worth pursuing. I think the second thing that it has done is it has invited committed stakeholders in the form of investors to come and partake in building something for the future. Because nothing gets built by itself, and nothing can be built by 1 or 2 key stakeholders. It requires an entire army to come together in the ecosystem to really firstly believe in the purpose, and then put money where their mouth is, or put money where their belief is. And it has allowed an opportunity for more stakeholders to come forth, invest, to build. And I think those two clearly have given women's cricket in general, and WPL in particular, a big springboard to leap from.
In a way, it's again a reflection of what you said a while ago, that you, as a girl, you wanted to watch yourself on television. When you saw yourself for the first time, it just kind of was... So again, from a WPL standpoint, and as Sanjog mentioned, from an IPL standpoint, IPL did the same to a domestic cricketer in India, where suddenly you found yourself on primetime television in the evening with like thousands sitting in the stadium cheering for you, the camera all focused. I think that does wonders, and which kid doesn't want to be part of a dream like that?
And you could be 15 years old.
Yeah, exactly. And one more thing about, again, the whole WPL thing, which I wasn't convinced about when it actually happened. I really wasn't convinced whether pay parity in women's cricket was a good thing. And I'll tell you why my thoughts went that way, is because, if you had to build a business model out of a T20 league, probably you had to stay true to what the numbers were, and probably you had to work around it to build something out of it. But then I began to realize while I was thinking of whether the business model would work or not, over a period of time, what it allowed me to see was, what did pay parity do? In terms of empowering a woman cricketer, the idea of pay parity made her believe that there was a stage being set for her to come on and kind of, make it what she wants to be. It was a stage that was inviting her to come on board as an equal. And I thought that was a great shot in the arm. Sanjog, I don't know, your perspective on how it shaped things when the WPL was being planned. What did pay parity do? And in the larger context, from a global standpoint, what do you think of it?
It's a signal. It's effectively a signal to the world that women's cricket matters as much as men's cricket does. It's a signal to stakeholders, it's a signal to potential investors, it's a signal to up-and-coming cricketers, and it's a signal to the ecosystem. Those two decisions, one, pay parity, as you said, and the other, the equal prize money for men's and women's ICC events, are largely signals to the world that there isn't a difference between a male cricketer and a female cricketer. It's a World Cup. It's not a women's World Cup or a men's World Cup. It's a World Cup. There's a cricketer who needs to be compensated for his or her skill on field. And it doesn't matter what the gender is. And I think those two signals are imperative in the overall context for the world to see what the potential of women's sport and particularly women's cricket can be.
Well, I think we're out of time, and to conclude this wonderful conversation, we can have Mithali's perspective on what she thinks of this World Cup and who are the two finalists that she sees making it. We were just discussing the England team, and she does it. At least on paper, I think they are who they are. So your thoughts on who can make it to the final?
Well, I did tell you that I'm still waiting for the Australia to release their team for the World Cup. But then, yes, India, as I mentioned, really has a good chance playing at home. The venues that they are aware of, and they have a prep at Vizag as well, where they play 2 games. They play against Australia and I think South Africa. So I think I will definitely go for India in the finals. It could be a toss-up between England and Australia. But yeah, Australia has played numerous finals, World Cup finals. They come in with a lot of experience. Tough team.
All right,
India, Australia.
All right, then. If India is winning the World Cup, we know what the guest list for the next year's World Leaders Forum is going to be. The team sitting here on the stage. On that note, thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you, Mithali, Sanjog, and Srinivas for that engaging and wide-ranging discussion.
Now, whether it's new formats, new fans, or new frontiers, cricket's next chapter, as you can see, is already underway.
One more time for our speakers, please. That brings us to the end of the first half of the program, but the conversations are only getting spicier from here.
Quick reminder, lunch break is going to start now. Lunch break ends at 1:45 p.m. And when we're back at 1:45, we open with someone who's redefined what it means to cook, create and provoke, one of India's most irreverent and globally celebrated chefs, Gagan Anand.
That's just the start. The afternoon is packed with fresh perspectives, big ideas, and a few unexpected flavors, both on stage and off it.
So stay curious, stay connected, and feel free to refuel with some lunch.
At Shah Jahan Hall. We'll see you back shortly.
Under Prime Minister Narendra Modi's visionary leadership, India is charting its course to becoming a global economic force and at the heart of the world's fastest growing